Welcome back to Cuthbert Cooks, Al Basha 2 in the Dubai United Emirates. Today a couple of quick dishes, a couple of different variations of bits and pieces that we've been looking at over the last few episodes. But what I'm going to first do is just quickly do a small apple pie filling, or which can be used. It can be used for apple pie filling, but it can also be used as apple sauce if you blended it all up. Very simple. About 700 grams of green apples, 100 odd grams of brown sugar. I like to put some fresh cinnamon sticks in. You can add a little bit of lemon zest if you like, and then just a little bit of water to start the process off. Pop this on the stove, cook it down until they're still nice and firm, they haven't lost their shape, and then chill your apple pie filling up and chill him down, ready to fill up your pie with a nice short crust or a nice sweet pastry pie lined ceramic dish, which we're going to do a little bit later on as well. So I'm just going to pop that on the stove and get that cooking, and then we're going to move pretty quickly into our Beef Wellington. If you remember, in one of the last episodes, we trimmed a little bit of beef fillet off. So we've got our little bit of beef fillet here now, and he's looking nice and beautiful. I've actually cut this down in half, so it's a bit smaller. I want to make smaller Wellingtons, and this also gives the opportunity just to seal him off nicely, get him cooking a little bit. Then we're going to chill him down, and then pop him back into the puff pastry, and then into the oven. If you're doing a whole fillet, you would want to cook the fillet till about a rare temperature, and then chill it down, and then put it inside your puff pastry, because it's going to be a large piece, and so you've got to make sure that the beef cooks all the way through. A very simple combination of beef. I've made a little bit of fresh mushroom duxelle. Of course, very simple. I've added just onions and button mushrooms, sweated them off in a touch of butter and olive oil, and then I've put in also a touch of thyme. I really like cooking with thyme. Bit of flour, little bit of egg wash for later on, and a little bit of ready-made puff pastry sheets. You know, puff pastry, it does take time, so there's nothing wrong with using what you've got from your local supermarket. And then we're just making that at room temperature, so it's easy to work with as well. I mean, on pastry, it's a specialised job, pastry. You know, when we were young cooks back in Melbourne, you know, you'd have 3 apprentices. You'd have a bakery apprenticeship, or you'd have a pastry apprenticeship, or you'd have a cooking apprenticeship, you know, because pastry and bakery is so specialised. I always call the pastry cookers and the bakers the sponge monkeys in the pastry and the flour masters in the bakery. You know, these guys are scientists, because everything they do has to be so accurate. They're really working with the ingredients. They've got to wait till that ingredient's perfectly matched, and the amount of ingredient to another ingredient is so important to successfully make your dishes. So chapeau to the pastry cookers and the bakers, because they've got a lot of patience, but they've also got so much techniques and so much skill, and they're like the little alchemists, the little chemists, and the little scientists of the kitchen for me. So what we're going to do first, I'm just going to heat up my pan, bit of olive oil, seal off the beef fillet. We're going to let that cool down a bit. We're going to roll out our puff pastry, dust a bit of flour. Then we're going to do a little wrapping of duxelle. You can make some crepes if you want to, and actually make a little crepe. So you put the crepes down, then you put your duxelle, and you wrap up your beef Wellington with a little bit of crepe and also the duxelle inside. So you get a nice looking piece as you cut it. You get a nice layer of duxelle. Traditionally, you just lay it on the bottom, and so you have one piece of puff pastry, then the duxelle and the beef on top, and then you encase the beef in the puff pastry. So it's really up to you to then experiment. You know, you can even pop a little bit of foie gras in there if you want a bit of extra cholesterol. So it's all good. So we're just going to turn on the old pan, nice heavy black pan. Get a good heat in the frying pan. I like using olive oil for pretty much everything, including drinking. Keeps me well lubricated. And then we're going to get that nice and hot. Then we're going to seal off our beef, and then we're going to prepare ourselves for the beef Wellington. Last night I did a little bit of cooking till about 1 o'clock in the morning. We braised off some beef cheeks, so we're going to have a look at those later on as well. So If you remember, we did our braising episode with our short ribs, which was fantastic. So then I got some beautiful Australian beef cheeks, and we just did another simple braising, traditional braising, braised them for over 4 hours so they're nice and tender. And then we're going to look at what we can do with those as well. So we're going to make a couple of little extra dishes that you could actually serve with the beef cheeks. I've got them chilled down into the fridge. I've got the jus separate, so we're going to reheat them in the jus, gets all the flavors going again, and then we serve them up maybe with a little soft polenta with some blue cheese. We'll make a little bit of risotto later on. So just some simple dishes for a one plate meal. You know, a great winter dish, as some of the Southern Hemisphere is going into winter. Up here in the desert, we're about 42 degrees today, so you know, braised beef cheeks and risotto is a little bit of a winter dish. But up here, it's okay. We'll turn the air conditioner on a little bit higher and pretend we're in the winter time. So we'll get started with the beef. We're going to seal that off and then get stuck into it. So we're going to get our little beef fillet here. So as you can see, I've cut them in half. Then we're just going to pop them in the pan, get them sealing off nicely. Going to have those there. Keep the heat nice and high so we get a good colour. Got my puff pastry here, just going to dust a little bit of flour onto the, little bit of flour onto my board here. Put some pastry over. Make sure we get the paper off nicely without tearing the puff pastry. A little bit of extra dusting on that one. It's got a little bit warm in the kitchen over here in Dubai in the summer. We move in. We're in the middle of Ramadan at the moment. So Ramadan is the holy month in the Islamic calendar, 30 days, 29 days, depending on the moon. So we're just on this is the third week of Ramadan. Ramadan started on Friday the 5th of May. And now we've got we're on 3 weeks in, so another week of Ramadan, and then we've got what's called Eid. Eid is the celebration at the end of Ramadan, which is 3 days. So the Islamic world, and especially the UAE, looking forward to really celebrating with family and friends. During lockdown, we'll see how that's going to work, and but we still have quite a few restrictions in place over here. We have a 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. curfew still, which is good. Some people have been going back to work, but a lot of people are working from home. The schools, for example, they're still, all the schools are still working from doing online, as the rest of the world is, or most of the rest of the world. Ramadan also, though, it's a beautiful time of year for us here, because traditionally we'd set up some beautiful majlises or Ramadan tents where people would come and celebrate or break their fast at sunset, and then we would go on to what's into a meal period called sahur until 3 in the morning. And it's normally a great time for us in our hotel, where we do some beautiful venues for Ramadan. But unfortunately this year we're not doing any events, so it's a little bit of a quiet Ramadan, and also the coming together for iftar and the coming together at Eid will be a little bit different this year for all our Muslim friends and our colleagues, as the social distancing will really play a role in celebrations of Ramadan. So we've got our little bit of beef. We're just sealing that off, making sure we get some nice colour. Then we're going to also chill him down a bit before we put him on put him in the puff pastry. If it's hot going in the puff pastry will be a mess. So we've got our little duxelle here. I'm just going to spread a nice layer of duxelle onto the puff pastry. Then we're going to pop our beef on top, and then we're going to wrap him up. Egg wash him, pop him in the fridge, let him rest a little bit, and then we just finish him off in the oven. Bit of a hot oven to start the puff pastry off, 220, and then we come down to drop the oven down to about 190, 200, and finish him off. Probably take about 30 minutes total, 25-30 minutes, but we can use a thermometer if we want to test the temperature, depending on how you want your beef Wellington cooked. If you want it medium rare or medium, I'm going to cook ours up to about medium, depending how successful I am. So we've got the duxelle on there. Just give the beef, and again, another little turnover. Get some beautiful colour. You can see the colour coming onto the beef. Nice hot pan. It'll also help the juices stay inside the tenderloin while it's cooking in the puff pastry. We don't want it all leaking out. So seal him off, seal the ends. And get good colour all over. We're going to leave him to cook a little bit more. Yeah, I've spent 29 years out here in the UAE, and it's always been interesting to learn about the different cultures and learn about the different people, and especially about the Islamic faith and what happens. And really, Ramadan is a special time that brings the community together. And it's not only the Islamic community, the Muslim people, but it's everyone comes together. And in our large majlises or our large Ramadan venues, you'll see multicultural, multi-faith all sitting together and respecting the faith. You know, we wait for the sun to set. When the call to prayer starts, that signals that fasting can be broken. So our colleagues, our Muslim colleagues, they fast from sunrise to sunset, and it's a long fasting time at the moment. It's up to 14 hours over here due to the time of year we're in. And then during the daytime, there's no drinking and no eating for the fasting people, and so the rest of us need to respect that as well. So when we're out in public, you know, we don't eat in public, people don't smoke and that sort of thing, and we make sure that we respect the country we're in. But then at iftar, everyone comes together. And you'll see the tourists coming in, so it's always interesting for the tourists to get a little bit of feel about what the true Arabian hospitality is. And I've always enjoyed when I've seen tourists coming into our venues to talk to them a little bit about what it is to be fasting and what it is also for the breaking of the fast. And they're always very interested to understand how the people can fast and how it affects them, and do children fast or do pregnant ladies fast. So it's really been a great experience to work out here to gain that additional knowledge. And young chefs, our industry gives us the opportunity to travel, and there's nothing better than being able to travel around the world and really learn and dive deep into a different person's culture, because then we really do understand what it means to be an international citizen. Right, so we're going to take our little beef fillets out. They're beautifully sealed off, as you can see. Lovely. Pop them on our tray, and then we're going to get them into the cool room to cool down. We're going to have a little look at our apples here. Now, I put a lid on here, and that of course has helped the apples start to stew. So now we're going to remove the lid. We want some of the liquid to evaporate, and then we're just going to test that. So these have had quite a lot of juice in them. I didn't use a lot of water, just a tiny bit of water in the bottom to start them off. They're still got some time to go on there. The lovely smell of apple and cinnamon, that perfect marriage, beautiful. Oh, super. So we're just going to let that cook down. So we're going to pop our beef tenderloins into the cool room, into the blast freezer, get them chilled down, and then we're going to come back to our puff pastry. So we've got we're going to egg wash quite heavily on the Wellington, because as he cooks, we want him to get a beautiful colour, nicely glazed as he cooks. Now you can glaze and then put him back in the fridge, air dry him a little bit, and then do another coating of the egg wash, just to make sure that you get a really super glaze. If you want to, put a couple of strips of extra puff pastry over the top, just to give a little look and feel. Make a little bit of decoration on top as well. You can lattice it if you want. Just going to make it quite simple. Just pop those over like that. Yeah, it just gives it another little touch to the top of the Wellington. Yeah, quite a simple thing to do. We have our nice little brushes. We brush our puff pastry lattice. Beauty. Perfect. Just make sure your ends are crimped as well. Just make sure that they are staying sealed, and then you've got that one ready to go into the oven. So then we've got the first one done, and then we're just going to finish off the second one. Again, same thing, duxelle down, fold him over, get him underneath, get that fold underneath, stop at the edge, make sure we get our egg wash on. Shape him up, get him underneath like that. Whoop, we've got a bit of a hole on that side, that's okay, we're going to be able to cover that up. To where the pastry's got a bit warm, so it's popped out, it's okay, we're going to be able to fix that. So we patched up our little hole there. We're just going to, again, just egg those ends, make sure we get the nice seal. Then we crimp down with our little fork. There we go. There we go. Push him down. Make sure that's a good seal. Same with the other end here. Very straightforward. I'm sure the pastry fellas and the sponge monkeys could do a little bit of better job than me, but let's have a look. Again, we want to nicely egg wash our little Wellington. Just pop our extra pastry. Nice egg wash all over. Get him nicely glazed when he cooks. Egg wash will give him a beautiful golden glaze on top. So when during Ramadan, when we do the catering and that sort of thing, there's always quite a beautiful array of food that's presented at iftar time. Some very traditional Egyptian dish of lentils and rice, little uzi, which is our whole lamb roasted with bizar spices. Bizar is a Emirati spice that is traditionally used to flavour many of the Emirati dishes, but also it's a household secret for each household has its own little recipe for bizar. So it's rubbed onto the meat, and then the meat is slowly roasted off, and you have a beautiful whole roast lamb which they serve on a beautiful flavoured rice. Then you have your normal traditional Middle Eastern dishes, your hummus, your mutabel. But on our buffets and in our restaurants, what we try and do is always have that Emirati cuisine available. So there's a lot of stews, or salunas as they're called. We also have traditional maguga or a haris. A haris is like a staple for the Emirati people, and it's always served at special celebrations and always during Ramadan. There's our second little one just popping in there. So it's also a great experience, young cooks, to when you travel and when you get the opportunity to work in another country, is to really learn the cuisine of that country as well, because there's nothing worse than trying to do something from a book and getting it wrong. But then if you've actually got someone from the country that your cuisine you're trying to learn to help you and guide you, and that's where I was very lucky working out here for all these years, to actually really learn how to cook a great curry, but also how to learn what is a good hummus, what is a good tabbouleh, and all the other little mezes and hot mezes and little dishes that are done from all over the Middle Eastern region. There's so many different types of mezze and so many different types of Arabic food, all the way from Lebanon and Syria, Palestine, all the way through Kuwait, the Gulf regions, the Khaliji part of the Gulf. You've got Bahrain, you've got Saudi Arabia. All these areas have their own take on certain dishes, and then up into Iran where you've got beautiful kebabs and some beautiful mezze as well. So it's always an opportunity, young chefs, if you get the chance to travel, grab it, go for it, take the risk, leave home. Don't worry, you can always go back to your mum, but get yourself overseas if you can, and when you're there in a country, absorb yourself into that country's culture and into its cuisine, because then you're really going to learn more and more, and then you adapt what you learn when you go back to your home country, or when you go to work in your own restaurant or open your own restaurant, or when your chef comes along and says, okay, where have you worked? Oh, I worked in the Middle East. Okay, cook me something Middle Eastern. Yeah, and that's where it's important to be able to actually do something proper and correct and traditionally flavored as well. So we're going to pop these in the oven, 220 degrees, get the puff going, and then we're going to drop it down and cooking for about another 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Going to temperature check them. I'm going to put a little bit more egg wash on. You know, as they air dry, this egg wash is going to give a beautiful glaze, as I said before, to our little Wellingtons. And then we're going to cook those, let them rest, and then we're going to slice them open. And hopefully we'll have a beautiful medium, fingers crossed, cooked fillet of beef Wellington. So just finishing off the beef Wellingtons with a little extra egg wash, been in the fridge, it's dried, got a nice coating, got the oven on, the oven's sitting up at about 220, I want to give it a quick blast at 220, I pop them in the oven, we're going to leave them in there about 20 minutes. Going to drop the oven temperature down a little bit after about 10 to 12 minutes, and then we'll just let it cook slowly at 200 degrees, and then we're going to pop the thermometer in. We want to look at around a temperature between 60 and 65 to get our medium rare, just a little bit more than medium rare. And then we'll bring them out, rest the Wellingtons, and then we're going to slice them up and see if we've hit perfection. The other thing we're going to serve the little Wellingtons with, I like sauteed potatoes with onions, so of course good old Rama olive oil in our heavy black pan. Got a little bit of salted butter as well, so I like to use butter as well when I do this. I've got white sweet onions finely sliced, and then going to pop those in. Then we've got little baby Dutch potatoes sliced up, saute them off, black pepper, salt, a little bit of thyme again, because I like a touch of thyme. Now with this, at the end you could add a little bit of jus. This is our braising liquid from yesterday night after we did our cheeks, and as you can see she's nice and gelatized, so we're going to use that as a sauce to help for the Wellingtons as well. But we could also put a little bit of that inside our we could put a little bit of that jus inside our sauteed potato and onion if we wanted to. So just pop the onions in. We're going to sweat them down, no colour. Again, as I always like to use the little white onions, just not so strong. Give a little bit of sweetness as well. And then we're just going to cook that nicely until they start to get translucent. And then we're going to pop in our potatoes. We're going to cover it, so that helps it cooks it a little bit quicker as well. And then we're going to continue to toss that in, and that'll be our little accompaniment with our beef Wellington. My childhood friend, Mr. Darren Breeze, he lives down in New Zealand now. Darren used to live 2 houses down in Cone Street in Bulleen in Melbourne. That's where we grew up as kids together. And Darren sent me a message. He says, "Can you do a video on the perfect steak?" I said, "Yeah, of course, mate. No worries, we can do that." I said, no problem. So in a couple of episodes, we're going to do some steak cooking. But the problem Darren's going to have, he lives in New Zealand, so the Kiwis will be complaining about what beef we're doing. And then his wife will complain because she's Irish, and so she'll be wanting to know if we're using Irish beef. So I think to settle the score, we'll just use some Australian beef. But let's have a look at that, Darren. So maybe we cook off a couple of nice ribeyes and then some nice medallion of beef as well, and we'll see how we can cook that and give you a couple of hints on how to get the perfect steak, mate. But I know that Darren's a great fan of paella, and I saw he'd moved inside, outside and outside, inside the other day, because he had his gas bottle in the kitchen with his paella pan on the top of the stove. So when we come over to visit you, Darren, you got to pull out the paella, mate. So there's the little. Just going to put the temperature down a little bit on the potatoes, and we're going to keep stirring them around. While we do that, we're going to get a little bit of that jus into a nice little pan, reduce it down. Now the pan has actually got, the jus has already got some thyme in it, and it's quite a beautiful gelatinous jus. So we're just going to put this on the burner, we're going to reduce it down, and then we're going to finish it off with a little bit of butter inside, a little Monte au beurre, and that's all we're going to serve with the Wellington, because that's all it needs. It just needs a little bit of sauce to go over the top, and it's going to be fantastic. So we pop that on the stove. Let's get that, we'll get that reducing. We've got our potatoes on. We're getting our sauce ready. The potatoes are starting to crisp up nicely. The onions have melted down. And so now I'm just going to pop a lid on top of the, if I can find my lid in the back of the cupboard. I like to just put a lid on there just to give it a little bit of help, a little bit of steam to help cook them off, to make sure they're completely cooked. We're going to drop the temperature down now of the oven, because we've been in there about 10 minutes, so we'll drop the oven down. We're not going to look inside, we've just got to keep an eye on the time. So in about 20 minutes we're going to open the oven up, pop our thermometer in, and then we're going to have a look. Our potatoes will be cooked by then, the sauce will be reduced, and then we'll be ready to slice up our beautiful beef. This one from yesterday, I'm going to get my beef cheeks out later on, and we're going to do a couple of dishes with the beef cheeks, maybe a bit of risotto, a bit of soft polenta, and play around with the presentation and play around with some flavours on the beef cheeks. So we've got our potatoes just finishing off nicely. As you can see, we've got them nicely cooked. No black bits. We've got nice little caramelization on those sweet onions. I've got my sauce here. I was reducing down my jus. So the jus is pretty much ready. I brought it down by nearly 50%. So half. I'm just going to strain that into another little pan, because I want to get some nice and hot, that pan already. So we put on our Strapmanus protective gear, Strapmanus PPE. So let's just swap around these. Yeah, been out of the kitchen too long. My hands aren't sensitive. Girls' hands. But not say that to Alana, she'll be upset if I say that. Pour that in there. Nice little fine strainer. Give him a knock. Just takes out any sediment and any other little bit left over. I was skimming the sauce, getting out the little bits and pieces that may affect the sauce, the clarity, and we want it nice and shiny. We want to make sure that that sauce has great flavour, and we want to make sure that it doesn't have any impurities in it. I'm going to finish it off with a little bit of butter as well. We're just going to Monte au beurre. I want to have a little taste of that as well. Just want to have a look at the consistency. So the consistency's come right down, beautiful. Nappe, the back of the spoon, beautiful. So that's ready. Potatoes are ready. And if we were in Jersey in the Channel Islands, where I worked with my mate Dave Cameron, now is Jersey Royals time. April, May, June is the harvesting season for Jersey potatoes. And when I used to live down there with Dave back in '89, Dave's still down there with his daughter Rebecca, and lots of Portuguese people were there picking the potatoes, but the potatoes are beautiful and sweet. You just rub them in your hands to get the skin off. Fantastic. So we've got the potatoes ready. We're going to turn them down. we've got the sauce. We're just going to keep that right turned down low. Then we're going to bring out the Wellington. What we're going to do, we're going to have a look at the Wellington. We're going to see if it's ready. We're going to have a look at if it's the temperature. We'll see how it's browned up. There we go. Oh, it smells all right. The oven's still nice and hot. Domestic oven. That's okay. Okay, in we go with our little thermometer. Let's see what temperature we've got in the middle there. Yeah, we're bang on. We're sitting on 65 in that one. We're sitting on 65 on that one as well, 66. So a little bit past, maybe up to medium by now, which is okay. It's all right. But it's just experimentation, young chefs. You know, you got to do a little bit of experimentation to make sure that you practice, and then you also make sure that you understand your oven that you're working with, and also the meat and the pastry. So the pastry's goldened up very nicely. The little puff pastries come up, our little bits of garnish there. So we're going to take one off. Where's my lifter? I want to pick it up with my hands. Got my little paddles here somewhere. Here we go. So we'll try this one first. So we lifted that out of the pan. Okay, we're going to let this sit for a little bit longer. Just let it rest a little bit. Yeah. Going to quickly finish the sauce. First, we're going to pop these beautiful potatoes. Going to get these potatoes into that lovely little ceramic there. Thanks, Dave, for that ceramic. This is your Jersey Royals from the Jersey pottery. So we've got our little sauteed potatoes. I told you before, if you wanted to, you could put a couple of tablespoons of the jus on these as well if you want, or just serve them as they are. They've come up nicely. The onions are browned off nicely, nice caramelized. You'll get nice sweet flavor. You crunch a little salt over the top, little bit of pepper, and it'll be super. So a little simple sauteed potato. Finish him off. It's enough. Pop that there. We've got our jus. We're going to just monte a beurre. So all I've got here is some soft butter chopped up into cubes. I've got my little pan on here. I'm going to pop the pan back on the oven, back on the stove. The jus is just absolutely fantastic. Now what the butter will do, it'll just bring the sauce up nicely, and it's going to bring a beautiful sheen onto the sauce. So we turn him up, get him back up. We don't want to cook him too much. In goes the butter. Just bring him round, richens up the sauce. It just shines it up. This one's for you, Mickey Mizzen. Monty or Beurre. You did plenty of that in the sauce here in Gatwick. Mickey was a stickler for tradition, which was great, because that's, you know, I learned all these fantastic skills when I moved out of Australia and went over to the UK. Learned some great skills from some fantastic chefs, and then we able to bring those skills back home. So we just Monty or Beurre the sauce. It looks absolutely fantastic. We bring it back to the boil a little bit. We're going to have a look at that on a spoon as we pour it in. Look at this. Here you go, cameraman code. Get a look at this. Look at the shine on that. Absolutely beautiful. Nappe the back of the spoon. Yeah, beautiful sauce. This is out of the roasting jus or the braising jus of the beef cheeks that I did last night. We're going to pop a little bit on that one. So we've got our sauce, we've got our potatoes, and let's see now how our beef looks. Now this is live. I'm going to slice him. Got a nice Robert Welsh. And there we have it, ladies and gentlemen, a beautiful little medium, just past, yeah, it's just on medium. Pastry's nicely cooked. Could have done a little bit more cooking on the pastry maybe, but it's a lovely looking dish. Guys, thanks a lot for watching. Beef Wellington, sauteed potatoes, a beautiful little veal jus with fresh thyme. Another classic and a great meal. Enjoy, guys. See you soon.